Diminishing returns is a very real thing whether you're looking at wireless earphones or even the audiophilia hobby, because whether you're looking at tooth ear holders or the Sennheiser HD800 series headphones, there is a significant amount of diminishing returns going on. Now, no doubt, if you don't have anything and you're thinking about getting into the hobby of audiophilia, or if you don't have a set of wireless earphones and you want to pick up a set of wireless earphones, there is bound to be a difference between something that costs 3,000 rupees and something that costs 20,000 rupees. But both of them at the end of the day are going to do the same thing, which is give you sound. Much like if you were to buy a budget car, which would cost you, say, anywhere between maybe 3 to 5 lakhs for a second hand one, whereas if you were to buy something more premium, which was 50 lakhs, both of them have 4 wheels, both of them are going to get you somewhere. But at the end of the day, it's the smaller things that will be different, and it's the smaller things that will make your journey from A to B that little bit more different. So for example, right here I've got the Oppo Enco Air 3 Pro, and this is what I'm using as a daily driver, the Yamaha E7B, TW-E7B. So now there's a huge price difference between these two, because the Oppo is about 4,999 bucks, whereas the Yamaha goes for, I think, around anywhere between 16 to maybe 22,000 bucks. So there's a huge difference in price. Now, if your priorities in this kind of situation was something along the lines of, I want better noise cancelling because I'm going on my commute, or I want something that can let me speak to somebody nearer me in office, the Oppo would most likely do slightly better than the Yamaha. Well, slightly would be an understatement. It does very well. It's a very good performer. Oppo has done a very good job with the active noise cancelling on this. Whereas with the Yamaha, if you wanted something like noise cancelling, it's not exactly doing very well over there. So both of them give sound, both of them have noise cancelling, but it's the sound department where the Yamaha is significantly better. Now, is it that much better in the sense, if this is 4,999 and this is 22,000, is it that much better in sound? No, it's not. It's going back to the whole car theory of things, because if you were to buy a small car and compare it to, say, a sports car, a Bugatti Veyron or something, is the Bugatti Veyron that much better than a car that can get you from A to B? No, it's not. But it's all the smaller elements of it that make the big difference. So if I had an option between these two, if it's about price and the sheer cost of how much these two cost, diminishing returns is a very real thing, especially on the sound front. So if money was not an option, and if somebody was just giving me the option of choosing between the Oppo or the Yamaha, I would most probably lean towards the Yamaha, because what I like with the set of earphones is their sound quality. So the Yamaha is significantly more pristine. It's more delicate. It's a little more confident in its delivery compared to the Oppo. So is it that much better? No, it's not. But it's irrelevant to me right now, where price is not a factor. So the factor of diminishing returns suddenly starts to dissipate to a certain extent when it comes to not having to pay for something, or if you have the price to spend on that thing. And it's the very same concept that leans on over to DACs, to amp, to higher end audiophile gear, because likewise, if you don't have anything and you're thinking about picking up a set of truth ear holders, which are, I think, go for about 1,800 up to 2,000 rupees, from nothing to the truth ear holder, it's a significant upgrade. Because let's say you're commuting without any earphones or any music, all of a sudden you have music in your life, and the truth ear holders are very good performers when it comes to the overall detail. Now, when it comes to, let's say, a set of Sennheiser HD800 series, you're talking about spending well over a lakh over there. So diminishing returns, yes, of course, because when it comes to something like this, they are very specific with how they can be used in particular. So the HD800, if you plug it into a phone, it's not going to work very well. You need a specific, or should I say, a well-powered amplifier. And then with the truth ear holder, you can just plug it into your phone and it should do fine, unless you want a little better quality. So then you plug in a portable DAC amp, which should work perfectly fine. Coming back to the diminishing returns of these two, well, both of them give you sound, both of them will give you music, which makes them practically the same thing. They will take you from point A to point B like the car would, but it's a matter of how would it do that, because you're talking about different things like design elements, you're talking about comfort, you're talking about overall sound quality. So when it comes to, again, if you're in a position where money is not an option and you could compare the Hola to the Sennheiser, as ridiculous as this comparison sounds, I think a lot of people would most probably want the finer detail when it comes to the HD800. But let me tell you why I wouldn't like the HD800. It's primarily because the 800, in fact, the ones behind me over there, they are overly analytical for my taste in music. I like things that are a little more curved around the edges. They're not so specific about their delivery to you. They're not so analytical. So the Hola in that sense is nicer for casual listening. Now, I would have preferred a middle ground, but if it's a hard choose between these two and somebody was just handing over these sets of headphones to me in a situation where I have nothing, I have no amp, I have no DAC that I can connect these to, the chances are the Hola will sound better through my phone amping it rather than the HT800. So listening to the HT800, even though it would sound, or should I say cost more or look more premium, I wouldn't go that way because my phone wouldn't drive it properly and it just wouldn't sound right compared to the Hola that is able to sound and perform a little bit better with my phone's internal DAC and amp. Speaking about DACs and amps, so I've been using the iFi Go Link for a little while now and I am genuinely pleasantly surprised because I've been cycling between my iFi Go Link, my PO DAP and my external amp, and I have also been using my desktop topping DAC along with my Shit Lear 2 amp for a few IEMs. So I've recently tested the SimGod EW200, the EM6L and the EA1000 from SimGod, and I'm happy to say that here is a terrific example of diminishing returns purely because of how good the iFi Go Link is. So if you look at the Shit Lear 2 and the topping D50S DAC, as nice as this hardware is, it's expensive. So the iFi Go Link of course is great for portability, but when it comes to the overall sound of it, now when it came to the performance of these three IEMs that I tested, I have to say that it does make you actually think if it makes sense to spend that much more money over this, because the iFi Go Link, I think it's about 6,000 bucks MRP or 5,000 bucks, and they're selling it for maybe around 4,000. But their prices do keep fluctuating. So if you're thinking of buying it, feel free to have a look. I will leave the link down in the description below. But all in all, while listening to it, it is surprisingly clean. It is surprisingly powerful enough to drive these. Now, no doubt, these are very easy to drive IEMs. So these are all factors. But at the same time, it really does make you wonder if it makes sense to spend that much more money on a desktop setup if a portable one works as well as it does. So now here's the catch. When the time comes where money is not an option for you, where you know you have a certain budget that you can fit, pick up certain equipment, and you're not really redlining your budget much, and you can pick up whatever you want. Here's where the diminishing return factor starts to disappear, because when it comes to this point in time, at this point, you figure out what you want in your audio. You figure out what the characteristics are that you like in your music. You figure out that you do like analytical headphones or you don't. You figure out that you like transparent headphones or earphones or you don't. You figure out if you like a warmer tone in your overall audio delivery or you don't. Do you like tubes or not? Do you prefer a solid state? These are all things that you learn over time and experience. So once you get to that level and there is no limit to how much you're willing to spend, or you have a fixed budget and you say, I'm willing to spend this much, these are the things I can get. At this point in time, then you start choosing what your flavors can be, and you start picking up the things you like in certain hardware. You look at the spec sheet of a certain product, you look at the spec sheet on another one, and then you start balancing things out. And here's where you start looking at the reviews or giving a listen to these things. If you can listen to demos, there's nothing like it. But if you can listen to the hardware that you want to pick up, here's where you start picking up the certain nuances that you like, which is how I got to pick up my topping D50S and my Shit Lear 2 desktop amplifier. So as real as diminishing returns are, at some point in time, it should start to fade away, because at least I remember when I got into this audiophile hobby, at one point in time, I had an absolute ceiling that I wasn't willing to flex. I wasn't willing to spend more than a certain amount of money. And over time, I've been able to say, okay, fine, I'm willing to experiment, or I'm willing to spend a little more, or I'll speak to somebody else and spend a little bit more on this and, try something else out and try this out and try that out. So because of that, I've really been able to figure out what I like personally and what gives me peace and what gives me zen when I listen to my music, because all of us like to listen to our music in a slightly different way that suits us particularly, because at the end of the day, it's only you who has to enjoy how your music sounds. When you get to a certain limit, even if your budget is, let's say when you first started, 3,000 for a set of earphones, and then later you do expand to a 5,000 or an 8,000, you can break it up into, I want to get myself a nice DAC or a nice amp, and I want to get earphones, and fit within that budget. And usually you'll find that it does have maybe smaller returns because of the diminishing returns, but the fulfillment you get in finding the sound you love all of a sudden it just makes it totally worth it. Diminishing returns just disappear. It's irrelevant all of a sudden when you find the sound that you've been after. In fact, something I found really funny, I found a lot of people who like to collect a lot of earphones in the 2K price range, or should I say the $20 price range. And I've had some people in my comments, or I've met a few people who say, hey, I've got 3 IEMs in this price range, or I've got 10, or I've got 20. I think I met one guy who once told me he had over 20 IEMs in that range. And I'm all for it. I mean, whatever whatever does it for you. But at the same time, I couldn't help but think how much those 20 IEMs cost. And I think a better way to go forward is pick up a few IEMs in the $20 range, and then maybe experiment with another one or two in the $40 range, and then another one or two in the 50 and the 80. So let's say you had that massive budget to begin with, or you didn't consider that, but if you have something in a certain price range, stretch a bit more next time, because even though the more expensive product will have diminishing returns, it might have a certain characteristic that you prefer over the other ones, because a lot of the IEMs I found in the $20 price range or 2000 rupee range, a lot of them are very similar on a lot of fronts and aspects, but they have slightly different flavors. There's nothing that really defines them very specifically over one or the other. They don't have a very defined characteristic. Whereas if you look at IEMs that sit in the $100 or the $200 or so on and so forth, or likewise with headphones, each one has its own characteristic, and some of them are richer in imaging, some are wider in soundstage, some are truer in their mid-range detail. Their timbre is just significantly truer than what others can be. So sometimes it does make sense to stretch that little bit, because you might just find something that you weren't sure that you were looking for. So there you have it. That's been my take on diminishing returns. I think I'm going to upset a lot of people who at least watched the whole video, but that's been my take, and that's been my experience with the world of audiophilia. It's something that can disappear over time if you are certain for what you're looking out for. If you're on a constant quest, it can linger. So looking for something you're not sure what you're looking for can take forever. But I've been pretty sure as to what I've been looking for. So I've been lucky enough to find it fairly quickly. So the few products that I've mentioned, I will leave in the description below, because I would recommend these, and feel free to watch my reviews on them if you haven't already. And of course, thank you for tuning in to Paul's POV for some sound advice.